As a way to try to minimize some of the overtime and some of the impact that's happening to private properties. And I instructed our sidewalk inspector, who's really in charge in enforcing the removal of snow and ice on sidewalks, to look to see if there's anything that maybe some other community was doing, or if we were having, we were just the only community having this problem. He did find that there are other communities that actually have enacted this type of legislation, and they actively go out and find people. So we brought it to the attention of our Corporation Council, and sure enough, he came up with this clever way of incorporating into 17-7. So we're very eager in trying to get this under our belt before the snow hits, and you know, basically, as many times as we approach these property owners and commercial contractors for not doing this, we never had anything to really fight them with. We really didn't have anything that we could go against them. And other than getting into a shouting match with some of these guys, there was really nothing we could do. So we feel, at least now, with the help of a police officer, we can refer them to -17-7, and hopefully we can issue a fine. But it's become, over the last couple of years, it's become a real issue for us, and it's a money issue. Safety too. You hit a snowbank out in the middle of the road with one of these big trucks, especially after it's set up a little bit, and it could spin you right around, so it becomes a safety issue. That's what drove this ordinance.
Thank you.
Through the chair, to Antonio, when you say commercial, basically you have more of a problem with commercial. What about regular driveways in people's homes? Would that also be under this, where people have somebody come in, plow their driveways, and they leave that out in the middle of the road?
That does happen, and but most of the biggest issues we've had have been with condominium complexes, shopping centers, things like of that magnitude. I tell you, people that clean their own snow out of their driveways, they're very conscientious about pushing it out into the street. It's the contractors, the guys that come in, and it's basically, how many driveways can I plow in a matter of, half hour, an hour, because the more they plow, the more money they make. So
just explain to me, so when they're plowing, they are plowing onto like sidewalks? And
right onto their main road. A lot of these guys will push the snow right up into the gutter of the road and then take off. And it's been, if we're going back out, it's not a big deal, but after we're done cleaning the road and we're in the process of packing up and going, and we get 2 or 3 calls that, there's a considerable amount of snow in the road, we got to go back out, and we find out that, we have one private contractor that does maybe 3 driveways on the street, and sure enough, he's completely covered our road up again. So now we have a method, in my opinion, to at least issue a fine and bring some, hopefully, resolution to this issue.
Okay. Thank you. Councilman Visconti.
I find it interesting that Mr. Ayarola just said that the commercial operators push snow back onto the sidewalks and so on and so on. And I have all due respect for your crews. But I would just like to point out for the record that I have seen a lot of the public works crews do the same thing after sidewalks are being cleared. Having said that, I have questions for through the chair to the corporation councils. And I'm going to play devil's advocate with this. I'm a homeowner, and I hire someone to do my property, clear the snow or whatever it may be, and that person unfortunately does what Mr. Ayarola just said, pushes the snow out into the middle of the road and then goes his merry way. The police officer comes by, or whoever comes by, and then issues a citation to me for $90 or whatever that amount may be. Who's actually responsible? And I know that it does say it under 17-7 that it would be such expense to be recovered from either the owner or occupier in an action brought in the name of the city. If I hire someone to do something and they do it wrong, will the homeowner still be responsible under this?
Yes, it's ultimately the property owner, the person in possession and control of the premises, the private property. So if you hire somebody, that person, you may go after that person, the property owner can go after that person to recover the penalty or fine that is imposed on them, but it's the property owner that's primarily liable.
Okay, follow up from that, please. I thought Chief Baker would be here, but unfortunately he's not. We are in an economic situation now that is probably one of the worst, if not the worst, that we've faced in many, many years, which trickles down to police departments and public works and wherever else it may be with making budget decisions. And I'm just wondering, we always hear from Chief Baker that he needs more officers, he needs more officers to do this and more officers to do that. Where are we going to find these officers to do problems with this unless somebody picks up the phone and makes a complaint about it? Will the sidewalk inspector be going around to check things out?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We'll probably call it in, through the chair. We'll probably call it in when we see somebody is violating 17-7, and then either one of my designee will offer a fine or a police officer, depending how pleasant that individual is.
I guess what I'm also getting at, Mr. Chairman, is that, again, we are in an awful economic situation. We have many, many senior citizens who own residence in the city of Danbury. And we seem to be just, every time we turn around, we're hitting them with something else. We're going to fine up for this, we're fining up for that. I totally agree with Ms. Guy to roll it on the restaurants, whatever it may be. If they're in the wrong, that's fine. There should be something done with them. But I can't really agree with when we come down and we hit the little old lady or little old man that goes out once or twice and gets the snow off, and then unfortunately it gets buried again either by a private organization or perhaps by someone from the public works, whatever. I just don't think it's fair that we keep doing this. And if we were to pass this, I couldn't agree to go any more than the $90 that already is in the ordinance for now.
Thank you. Perhaps maybe even I could help out with my experiences. That if a police officer was called to this type of thing, he has the ability to locate possibly the ability to locate the plow truck operator and approach him directly, rather than go to the homeowner for a fine. If let's just say it's a serious situation. I mean, I know that when I was working on a job there, I would have gone after the plow truck operator. He's the one who actually did this thing. We could, our ad hoc committee could almost suggest to the police department to have some kind of SOP, and it's rather than just go by prima facie evidence that the homeowner's involved, the homeowner's responsible for this fine, or whatever. I think having a bit of teeth, the city having a little bit of teeth, having a fine is a good thing. That keeps these guys from just plowing the snow out into the street. But I think an officer can investigate this like as he does any other issue, which is that's what the officers are for. I mean, it's not like a car accident you have to address immediately, but it's something he could investigate. Mr. Seabury.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have to agree with my colleague, Councilman Casani, and you, sir. It's been my experience over the years, the last 20 or more years, that I've paid attention to plowing, that there are plow trucks out in the middle of the night. If the snowstorm is predicted, forecasted, the guys will get up and start their rounds and be gone even before the homeowner's awake. And consequently, I've seen these mounds of snow out in the middle of the road. And I don't think it's fair either to go after the homeowner who doesn't even know it's taking place. And the other part that I have is that how will this happen, and this is through the chair to Les, if I might, would this be publicized that this new ordinance is going to take place, and therefore that's the legal warning to all these plowing guys?
Through the chair,
Yes.
that would be typical. The publication is formal notice
News
to
Times?
the public in the News Times. In addition, the city could put out other publicity, a press release of some kind if the mayor wants to do that, the council wants to ask for that. Those would be the ways, but basically it's the publication that provides formal notice of, in addition to notice of this meeting, the subsequent public hearing that they'll have to have next month for this if you proceed, and then the publication of the final ordinance.
All right.
Those are all ways people can find out.
Well, just to conclude, I think it's going along with you, Mr. Chairman, go after the truck driver rather than the homeowners. Thank you.
Councilman Cabo.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also think I'm an advocate here, and I respectfully will disagree with Mr. Seabury, Mr. Visconti, and Mr. Arcanti, and I'll give you the reasons why. When you contract someone for your home to do work, you contract them to do the job the way you prescribe them to do the job. If you have your bathroom remodeled, you have your kitchen painted, you have your house sided, you contract someone to do a job per your specifications. And I think the same thing falls in play here when you hire a contractor to plow your driveway. And I think that the responsibility going back to the homeowner will ensure that. And I think the whole intent here is to take the burden off the police department so they don't have to go around in the night chasing a plow driver to find out if you're the one. And he could turn around and say, it wasn't me, it could have been somebody else, or I used to plow. So it could wind up being problematic trying to track down an individual person with a plow who did this. And I think it would just be an extreme waste of resources, time, and energy of the police department to have to go and chase these people. I think if a homeowner, I think better suited would be, I don't know, and I'm sorry I was late, but there may be a clause in there for a warning, and then an infraction following the warning, so that the homeowner could certainly talk to their hired company and say, you cannot push the snow to the road, otherwise I will be fined, and I will be passing that fine right along to you the first time I get it. So I think that better standing would be a warning first with an infraction following. And I will tell you from experience, working in public works, there are, and Antonio could probably back me up on this, there are chronic violators of this. You know who the people are. The plow drivers, the group guys know who these people are. And I think if they got warned once and fined a second time for it, I think that it would have a better deterrent at stopping this in a more expeditious manner than having to have the police tied up chasing down a plow driver.
Well, like any infraction that an officer investigates, he has complete discretion on this thing. Obviously, if it's, I would think that if snow took up some of the travel portion of the highway where cars would have to drive around and result in an accident, well, that may be a bit different than just pushing it across the street and keeping it off the travel portion of the highway where it's not a safety issue. Right. So the officer would have discretion on whether or not to issue a summons or not, depending on how severe this problem is in this particular location. I just wonder why, Mr. Adirol, I wonder why you would just pick anybody to issue summonses. Why not just let the police do that?
I'm sorry?
To issue infractions, to issue summonses for this right here.
It's basically any police officer, myself or my designee. In the middle of the night, we'll sometimes talk to a contractor 3 times in the middle of a storm. You can't do this. You got to stop. Well, I wasn't here before. Another driver was here before. They didn't tell me. I won't do it again. Next winter, it's the same thing. Sandpit Road. Last year we had an accident directly related to that same contractor pushing snow onto Sandpit Road. Officers went there, 3 or 4 officers. By the time we got there, all the plow truck drivers were gone. This is what ends up happening. So And you know, you talk a little bit about discretion. It's true. I mean, if we have a person that for the first time has completely closed up our road, we're going to knock on the door, we're going to talk to the property owner and say, look, you got to tell your snowplow driver that he can't do this, and we want to let you know that if it happens again, we're going to have to issue a fine. And you know, that's what we do. But to go through every year spending the taxpayers' money on the same locations dealing with this, I mean, if that's what you guys want to do as a general legislative body of the city, I'm okay with it. I'm just letting you know I'm bringing something up to you that really needs to be corrected. And although it's not going to correct most of the issues and the problems, and there's many during snow plowing season, but this is a significant one. And you know, the public safety is at risk.
I think everybody recognizes the public. It's a public safety issue, but don't you think the police department has much more resources to locate this, and it would have more of an effect, don't you think, coming from a police officer? If you were to call a police officer, say you have a chronic problem in a certain area, you call a police officer and the officer goes over there, I think that might have more bite than a public works official. No offense to you at all, but when an officer says, "Listen, here's I can issue a summons for this type of thing if this happens again," then it might have more bite.
Again, I think it's important to there's two arguments here. Is you go after the plow truck driver? I think you go after the property owner, the person that's contracting, because that's where the corrective action is going to take place. I'm going to be honest with you. Half of the people that we talk to that are snow plowing, they don't even understand a word of what we said after we approach them. So, dealing with the property owner and saying, you have to tell your contractor to stop, or next time we're going to come here, we're going to have to issue a fine. And then they're going to be duly warned. If they do it, we're empowered, like we are on some other issues, to issue a fine of whatever it may be for that violation of the ordinance. So, you know what? Maybe some people will just keep paying the $90 and just let it happen.
Perhaps big companies wouldn't mind. They don't care. Pay the $90, they don't care. Yeah. But if we were to go after the contractor, the guy actually pushing the snow.
The first thing I did I would do as a condo owner is just put in my contract with the snow removal that any fines that are incurred because of your snow removal procedures will be paid by you. That would be the simplest way to do that as a condo association or a commercial property.
But it doesn't have to be an either or. This whole thing doesn't have to be an either or though.
But I think at the end of the day, at the end of the day, I think it has to go back to the property owner.
Well, ultimately, it would be if you couldn't find the contractor, right? If you couldn't find a contractor, go back to the prima facie evidence is such that you go right to the homeowner. Yes, Mr. Visconti.
Through the chair to corporation. Is there some type of language that we could put in here that we would have the leeway to go either with the homeowner and or the contractor in regards to what we're talking about?
Well, you could if you wanted to clarify or specify in subsection G, for example. You could designate or make a difference between who you might want to be tagged with the citation. You can't do that. There's nothing to say you can't do that. Police officer or the public works official would determine, based on that language, who to issue the citation to. I don't think there's any problem with that if you want to amend that, bring something back to you, or give it to you for consideration for the whole council.
Oh,
Sorry,
I'm
at Mr. Visconti, and maybe you can help me out with this, Les. The only concern I have about that, Freddie, is there are some companies that have 6, 7 plow trucks. They have people, like the Antonio said, there's communication problems. The owner is not on site. If a policeman comes and hands a driver of a plow truck a ticket, and he takes it, or the ticket winds up on the floor with his Dunkin' Donuts coffee cups and all the meals that he's been eating from McDonald's for 2 days in a storm, how do you go back and enforce that? It starts becoming, I think, a professional problem about how do you most of these trucks don't have names on the sides, they're not LLCs. you wouldn't be able to even find out the owner of the company if you were to address some of these plow truck drivers. That's why I think the homeowner's really the best way, the property owner is the best way to have it, because you have an ability there to enforce it through the city by saying you owe this fine, and it's due and it's collectible. So, I mean, I can see a plow truck driver taking and throwing a ticket in a snowstorm on the front seat of his Ford truck. And, yeah,
There's ways around that too, Councilman Cowell, because on the summons it would have the registrant's information on there, and you can go back to the register.
Every truck and every car in this city is registered.
No, I'm not saying that. No. I'm not saying that. But there is a way to go back to the register on that. Yes, Mr.
I just wanted to address a little further to Mr. Visconti. The reason that this section, this amendment finds itself in this particular section, and Antonio's point about the snow and the snow plowing is a part of it, but I think the reason that we'll find this here is because the intention is to try to tie the adjacent property owner into the problem. Okay, so but if it's a snow plow company, you know, that's a different animal. But most of this, or a lot of this, I think, at least based on what some of the other communities did, was really to avoid a property owner shoveling debris, sweeping debris, pushing debris into the street. Okay, so in that case, you don't have a problem with an outside entity, except as Fred said before, if you hire a lawn maintenance firm. But if you have the property adjacent to where the stuff was pushed, you know who to go after. That's, I think, where most of this came from. If there's a snow plow company that's out there, you know, if you want to figure out a way to add that in and deal with Mr. Cabo's concern, how would you chase them, you know, that can all be dealt with. But just so you understand that this was put in this particular section, 17-7, because the intention was to tie in the adjacent property owner to the adjacent city property. And Tony, I think I'm correct about that.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman, I think several of these types of ordinances are related back to the property owners. So that seems to be the way most communities are trying to enforce and deal with these types of issues, is tying it back to the property owner. And that's probably supportive of why we put it in here.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I just ask one question. I guess it's to Antonio. We're talking about snow removal predominantly here, but now's the time of year where people are taking care of lawns with regard to leaves, and they're blowing those things out into the road, and a good many people are just blowing them out there from next guy to pick up, or you guys to come and pick up with your great big shop axe.
That happens on Deer Hill
It happens on Pleasant Street too.
all the time.
Now that, certainly if I could see homeowners have a little bit more input into that type of problem, because they're the ones that can be blowing it out there, whereas the snow, they don't have a plow, if I made my point. And there's also, Councilman Cowles brought to my attention that there are different establishments in town where Monday mornings, the lawn maintenance guys are over there blowing everything out into the street. Parking lot looks good, but it's all over the street. So that would take into account all these infractions as well. Is that correct?
Okay.
Gentlemen? Both? Yeah. Right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I just one thing that you had brought up? I just want to make one thing clear, that the Public Works Director or his designee is already charged in other ordinances with issuing citations for littering, for user acts, and there's also already a general provision in the citation section, the generic citation section, where that department is authorized under a myriad number of sections otherwise in the ordinances also. So they already have the authority to issue the citations, and the citations do come with a warning as the first step, just to, because I know there's some concern about public works.
Do you want to make a motion? Do you want to make a motion?
No. Anything else from anyone?
Just one thing, Mr. Chairman, just to clean up, just looking at the heading and a couple of the small things, I just want to suggest to the committee that if we can add, and we have time because this is going to the council and to the public hearing, if we can add a phrase after the except for the heading, removal of snow, ice, sand, and debris from sidewalks and private property, semicolon, deposit onto public property. It's a little confusing. I was looking at it again just before. So we add the words deposit onto public property in the heading. It's a little clearer for people looking at it, because Greg was saying how people didn't know. And also, if in subsection H, the fourth word in, if we can substitute the word or for and.
Oh, yeah, the police officer or.
Or, yeah. And the fine, the fine's up to you folks, but if you're going to change the fine, you should do it. Second one was a change in H, fourth word in, change and to or. That's just cleanup stuff. The fine is something you guys, you can go up, you can leave it at that. It's up to you. We just wanted to bring that to your attention. This is the time that you could.
Mr. Chairman, since we're in the process of revising this, I have one request myself.
Please go ahead.
I would really like to change the $90 per day to a $90 per event. That's really more appropriate.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
For violation or something?
Or right per violation, maybe.
That may be.
Thank you for the proper wisdom of words.
I'd like to note that Councilman Esposito joined our ad hoc.
Thank you.
Wow. Any more? Do we have any more discussion on this?
I'd just like to say that
Please go ahead.
I know where Anthony's coming from with this. I see it a lot during the winter time, and I think it's good. But I would just like to see perhaps if there could be some kind of language, even though Councilman Calvo pointed out that it would be hard to find out what's going on. But I would like to see some kind of language in there that at least try and protect the homeowner. We have too many older people in this city living on fixed incomes. They get annoyed, so that when they do, they throw the snow or the leaves, whatever it may be, out into the road. There's got to be some kind of language that we can put in here to give us a little bit of a direction other than to just keep hitting the homeowners. That's my main concern.
Mrs. McMahon.
We want to protect the homeowners, but lots of times it's their fault. We have these problems out there. They shouldn't be throwing their snow out in the middle of the street, and they have snow plows themselves, then they plow it right out in the road. I mean, people should know not to do that.
Wouldn't you think
Go ahead.
any reasonable and prudent person investigating this right here, whether it be it a police officer or Mr. Iderola, I think would recognize if it's a homeowner's, if the homeowner's involved, if we have an elderly or person who has no control of what's, they hire these people and they have no real control other than hiring them and what they do, I think any reasonable and prudent police officer or worker for the Public Works Department would at least investigate it as much that say that it's say without, not in the line of sight of this person, the homeowner, they would at least investigate this and try to track down the, so more in line Councilman Visconti's suggestion on this, that, you know, I think anybody who's investigating this would at least, look into this thing and say, well, the homeowner probably couldn't see what was going on there, and go after the, at least go after the, say, plow truck driver, and let him know, let that person know that what they're doing isn't right, it's unacceptable, and it could result in a fine. I guess I'm speaking from my own experiences when it comes to things. I mean, that's the way I would handle something like that right there. Councilman Scott.
I'm going to give myself a lot of trouble, but I don't really care.
Okay.
Jeez. With all due respect to Anthony and his crews, and you can rebut me on this. That's
And I plan to.
I know I stopped it.
Yeah.
Maybe we should also take a quick look, if we could, at the reasons that a lot of people put snow out into the road. I'm going to concentrate on the snow because that's where I put snow on the road. A lot of times I just get sick and tired of having a snow plow come down Mountainville Avenue, wherever they may be, for the third or fourth time, and just bury the sidewalks. It's just ridiculous. I don't know where these guys are coming from, but that's why I go out and I get mad and I just dump it where they put it. Okay.
Well, since we're talking about snow plowing operations, I'd just like to try to figure out where we would put the snow. Do you want me to angle the plow and put it on your neighbor across the street? Is that what you're suggesting? I mean, you know, I don't want to get in a debate on how to plow a road, but the sidewalk and a grass strip that usually exists between the gutter and the sidewalk is called a snow shelf. It is for the purpose of depositing snow that is on the road. Now, we have some very attentive residents, and they go out there in the middle of the night as soon as the first flight comes, and they clean their sidewalks. So that's what they like to do. They don't want to see any snow on their sidewalk. And we tell them, you know, why don't you wait till we're done pushing everything back and go out there and clean it. But some residents like to go out 2 or 3 times a night and do that. But understand one thing, that is the road right away. And it is, our first priority is to open the travelway from gutter to gutter. But that's what it comes down to. So just so you understand, and nobody understands, you know, everybody should understand, we're not doing anything wrong, that is normal practice of a municipal public works department. And to think that maybe we should angle the blade the other way and push the snow on the other side of the road is really not the proper way to plow a road or to treat your fellow neighbor across the street.
Councilman Dow.
This will be my last time.
Okay.
Just in response to Mr. Visconti's concern about elderly homeowners, the fact that there is an ability to give a warning to a homeowner, it's the homeowner's responsibility to pass that warning on to their plow driver.
I don't see that anywhere.
Mr. Pinter just assured us that there's a provision for a warning. Mr. Pinter just assured us there's a provision for a warning. And I think that due warning and then the homeowner taking the responsibility to the plow operator and saying, look, the next time you put the snow in the road, I'm going to get fined by the city. Don't put the snow in the road, or I'm not hiring you to come back and plow my driveway anymore. I think that's where it falls in. I think it falls in the responsibility of the homeowner. And, you know, with due warning, they have the opportunity to warn their plow driver, and it should just go from there.
Well, again, I go back to any reasonable, prudent police officer or person who works in the public works department to investigate it properly. We can come up with a million different cases on this, and just investigate these things accordingly. Councilwoman,
I'd like to make a motion.
please do.
Hopefully I can say this correctly here. I'd like to make a motion that section 17.7 of the Code of Ordinances of Danbury be amended by adding 2 subsections designated as subsections G and H. Do I read these? Read these, each one? The way we've changed the wording?
Sure.
Okay. Section 17.7, removal of snow, ice, sand, and debris from sidewalks and private property, deposit onto public properties. G, no person shall place or cause to be placed any snow, ice, sand, or debris upon any street, road, public highway, sidewalk, or other public property in the city. H, any Danbury police officer or the director of public works or his designee shall be authorized to issue citations providing for penalties of $90 per violation of this section.
Are you going to add it to about a warning or deny it?
That's within the citation ordinance right now. You know, that's it, incorporated in the citation law.
And the dollar amount stays $90. You know, what we can do with that?
I guess we can discuss it, but
No,
I know.
that's fine. I'll send it.
Okay. All those in favor of this?
Aye.
Move we adjourn.
Second.
Aye.